MMA, the pinnacle of violence, the closest thing we've got to modern-day gladiators. No teammates to hide behind, just you, another savage, and a cage. But nobody's born cage-ready. Every fighter, no matter how violent or polished, had a first time. First gym, first scrap, first taste of blood. This is how UFC fighters got started in MMA. Let's start with the biggest name in the UFC today, El Matador. Illia was destined to be a fighter as soon as he started walking.
I understand your father was the one that introduced you to martial arts, right? When you were a little kid, jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, with 4 years, he introduced me in judo. Then when we moved to Georgia, we started training with Greco-Roman wrestling. And finally, when we moved to Spain, we started with BJJ and MMA with all the stuff.
Was he a fighter, or did he train, or he just wanted you, his son, to do it?
No, when he was young, he did wrestling a little bit, but he was a big fan of all the mixed martial arts. You know, he was the first person who talks to me about the UFC, about the Gracies.
Wow.
Yeah.
By 15, school was secondary. His dad basically handed him permission to chase the cage instead of textbooks.
When I was 15 years old, I go with my brother to talk to my father, and we tell him like, hey Dad, we don't want to go to school anymore, but we really want to train, and we're gonna go like all day, every day in the gym, and we're gonna train, because my dream was to get to fight in the UFC.
Our beloved Tony started in MMA exactly as you'd expect, by sheer chance.
Most random So I was in Michigan, I was looking for something different. I was bartending at the time. I go to California in Ventura County, and I go into this bar with my cousin. I was looking for a bartending job. I go in there and he's like, no, we don't have any bartending spots open. He's like, you want to be a security guard? You look like, you know, you can handle your business with your ears. And I said, nah, I'm not interested. He hands me a West Coast Jiu-Jitsu card. I was like, hey, do you have any equipment? And he's like, yeah, you can use these hand wraps. Sweaty as shit. I was like, these were like the lost and found kind of stuff. And he's like, yep, there's a bin right there. There's a blue bin. You can go get some gloves too. And this guy comes over, his name is Rafulio. And he's like, hey kid, is that you hitting the speed bag? And he comes up and he's like, where's your gloves, kid? I don't have any. I was using the ones in the lost and found. And he goes, turns around, and comes back, and he had a brand new pair of ringside boxing gloves. And mind you, I had like maybe $5 to my name.
You've probably known how Masvidal went pro, but do you know how he started fighting before that?
And I had a lot of piss and vinegar inside of me, a lot of rage, you know, and I didn't want to be controlled, and the older I got, the more rage I had, and I didn't have a place to like focus it in. And then I would do martial arts or karate or kung fu, and every time I'd get in trouble in school, my mom would immediately take me out of these activities, and that would just fuel my rage even more, you know, like aim, and I didn't have an outlet, and that was my outlet.
Kimbo's backyard fights were more real than school ever was. And there, well, he was a straight A student.
And from like, I would say like 19 to 22 more, I was more on the grind, but I turned pro at 18, and between living at the gyms and people's places, that's what I was doing, you know. But at the time, I was never like, I don't want anybody watching this to be like, oh my gosh, poor you, because I was never a victim. All of this was part of the process.
Living out of garages and gyms, underpaid, underschooled, but unrelenting.
Okay, because originally you started out with the street fights and the Kimbo Slice backyard fights.
Yes, sir.
So you were involved in that.
Yes, sir. Even out of the 20 years that I went pro, he was one of the toughest fights that I had, period. You know, as far as power, he definitely hit hard. Man.
Another construction worker turned MMA legend is, of course, Mighty Mouse.
Martial arts. If you count, some people don't count wrestling as a martial arts.
Oh, you should.
Right? I do.
Yeah,
right?
I do. It has to.
So I started in middle school, and then once I got out of high school, I didn't go to college to wrestle. I jumped right into mixed martial arts. So I think, you know, Matt, he made me do one fight at MMA. Then the next fight was boxing, mixed martial arts, then kickboxing, back to MMA, shoot boxing, and then he was like, "Hey, you gotta do this grappling tournament, and you need to submit everybody. Don't come back if you don't." Right? So,
say what you want about the guy, too cocky, too reckless, friends with a dictator, but Khamzat Chimaev didn't crawl out of comfort. He crawled out of survival.
Always, like inside in me,
I'm gonna find some ways like make my life is better, you know. So I always was thinking, always was working and doing something, you know, and I never stopped.
What your mom was doing when you first moved to Sweden, and why did you want to make things better for her? Like, why was that so important to you?
She thinks always about us. She wants, like, you know, it's when I was young, you don't understand why she gives his food to us. You know, like she was waiting for us, like we finished the food and this is things she left, you know, she's eat this one. And now when I become like all the time and understand what she did that, now you wanna give back everything, you know. It's like, that's why I'm always feel like I have to make his life is much better.
Sean O'Malley didn't care for class unless it was PE.
You know, I didn't like school at all, hated school. I did not want to go to school. You had to go to school, you had to get good grades to play these sports. So I got turned away from that kind of, those sports, and I was like, well, I want to play one-on-one sport. I want to try boxing, I want to try kickboxing. And that's kind of how I got introduced to combat sports, but I was it was so random. It was just that was the sport that I knew was one-on-one. And it was in high school, so I was like, definitely we'll get chicks from this. That was one of like the main things was, you know, I want to impress the chicks. I think fighting, that'll do it.
If nothing else, the man's honest. GSP, the GOAT himself, started out scared. He didn't want to fight, he had to fight.
And I've learned it in the schoolyard with the bully. What I've learned is how I get rid of bully is by putting a mask on me. That's what martial art taught me. I was getting picked on when I was young because I was a kid that lacked a lot of confidence. I was like looking down, shrugging my shoulder, and I looked like a very easy target to the bully. If we look at nature, the lion, the prey, the predator will always prey on the easiest prey. You know, the oldest, the one that are sick or weak or injured. And I was the same thing. I was a very easy prey. And what martial art gave me is the confidence. You know, I knew how to defend myself, and also it created more confidence in me. And I knew I needed to put a mask, because when you play poker or you're going to fight, you can't show your weakness.
And now the Blessed Express.
So ninth grade play baseball. 10th grade, playing baseball. Towards the end of the season, I met this guy named Josh Keanu, one of my best friends now, and he got me into fighting. So he was fighting, you know, this tall, goofy kid with like, he had this weird like mohawk. I remember in 9th grade I saw him and I would be like, and I was like telling myself like, what the hell is this guy's deal? Like, I'll beat this guy. He was huge though. I was tiny. I was a small kid, so I don't even know what I was thinking. I was just being an idiot, because I was just a hot-headed kid all the way to 9th grade until I knew when I had to figure it out, you know. And then I remember I was like, I'll probably beat this kid up, which 2 years later, thank the Lord I didn't try him, because I became friends. He invited me to come train, and he beat me up that night in training with just like one punch, a jab.
Wow.
Literally just beat me up, and I was like questioning. I remember going home and thinking like, holy shit, thank the Lord I didn't fight him in school. I would have got my ass kicked. I would straight up, I don't know how else to say it, so.
Enjoy this video? Be sure to smash the sub button and stick around and support the channel by checking out some of our other uploads. Thanks for watching.